And it's only then you can really appreciate the food. If you go to the fast food place, they give it in 2 minutes and off you go. But that's the difference. And that is the same with the Quran. See, with the Quran, it's about you taking a small amount at a time. And the Sahaba knew this was a technique that they used. Taking a small amount of time and really going hard at it. Really trying to understand. Really having sleepless nights. Thinking, letting it roll over you. Thinking about exactly what does this mean. Wholly thinking about this ayah. And one of the first things that you should do whenever it is that you engage with the Quran is that you should ask yourself questions. The Quran, when it talks about the challenges of the Quran to be able to produce a few ayat or a surah like it, it's not just about, it's asking, when it mentioned in some of the incidences, the kuffar. So even the kuffar, the Quran is asked to engage in tadabbur al-Quran. What do you think about me and you? Is it just for them to be engaged in tadabbur? It is also for us. Which means what? It means as much as we go to the Quran, as much as you call yourself Muslims and you declare that you believe in the Quran, challenge the Quran. When you challenge the Quran, you will find the answers in the Quran. It's not that you're trying to be rebellious about the Quran, but you're truly trying to understand what is there. You're trying to move away from your comfort zone, as the case may be. And that's so important. So a little at a time is important. Little at a time, one baby step is just about what you need to do. And sometimes you might think to yourself, I don't seem to be making much progress. See, I really want to study the Quran, but I want to study the whole of it and I want all of it now. Because that's the culture we live in. We want it and we want it now. But that's not what the Quran is about. It's about taking a little bit at a time. And many of the Sahaba will say that, that it took me 10 years, 15 years, as the case may be, just to study one surah of the Quran. One surah of the Quran. So it's important to do that, inshallah. Now, the seventh point is that it's a study over and over again. And this is the point. So Albert Einstein said, he said that if you always do what you always did, you will always get what you always got. If there's one thing for you to memorize at the end of this presentation, it's this from Albert Einstein. It is so important. People always ask the question, why did I fail my exam? Why did this happen to me? Well, and why do I consistently not seem to be getting what I want? Well, you've consistently been doing the same thing. So if you do the same thing, you'll get the same result. So last term, I got a B in an exam. This term, I got a B in an exam. Why did I got a B again? You did the same thing you did last term. You didn't learn the lessons of what you did before. And that's so important. And it's the same for everything in life. Why it is that I get up late for Fajr every day? Well, you've done the same thing that you've done all the time. All the other days that you got up late for Fajr, you did the same thing. You made no changes in your life. So you were never becoming reflective. And talking about this reflective, I'll give you a little example just a couple of months ago when I was in an interview. So there was this guy who came into the interview. And he was where was he from? I think he was from France. A Muslim guy from France comes into the interview. And you can tell that he's a Muslim. He seems to have a nice rounded beard and everything else about him. And he sits in the chair. And then he says, I said, show me your portfolio of what it is that you do. So he gives me his portfolio and I started skimming through it and so on. And then he had so I looked at the section on references, where he gets his references from his consultants. And then in the references, it says in the reference here, this guy, he is somebody who's always late. I could never get him to get to work on time. He's consistently doing this, and he's consistently doing that. And then he has this as one of his references of 2. Okay. So I looked at him and I said, so why did you choose this particular referee for your references? He says that I'm trying to be honest. So that's why I chose it. I just want to say it as it is. So I said, fine, fine, you okay, good, very honest. I'll give you a mark for that. So I give so you got a mark for being honest, okay? So, I mean, you can't tell them anything, you just have to objectively assess what you have. So when the interview was over, as he was before he left, I said, can I give you a word of advice? I said, I've given you a mark, right, for your honesty. But I would have given you 3 marks, so even more than that if I had to. If it is that you had taken that same, you had put it in, you had made a change in your life, you had gotten somebody to write something that says that this guy was a guy who was never punctual, he has totally changed. Now he's somebody who is punctual, he understands and has learned his lesson. If he had done that, I would say I've given you 3 marks. And that's the difference. You see, this guy, he's right. I mean, he wants to be honest. As we want to be an honest Muslim, want to do the right thing. He wants to show to me that he has a class, as the case may be. But that's not enough. It is not enough. Being honest on its own is not going to get you where you need to go. It's not because you're a Muslim will you succeed in life. It is not because, so many people blame, they use that as a crutch or sometimes as an excuse of why it is that things, I went to the interview and they didn't like me, they saw my name, I didn't like my Muslim name, my beard was so long and so on. I mean, I had a case of one of my relatives recently who went for an interview. So he goes for a big interview in a big job, and what he does is that he goes dressed with a jalabiya. All right, he's going for a big interview on jalabiya with 3/4 length pants, with a slipper on, because the same way that he would normally go to the mosque. Okay, all right, okay, that's what he likes to dress like. Okay, fair enough. But then he says, then he shows up late. He says, I was in the mosque and I just, time overtook me. So he goes to an interview and he says, I'm ready here with his miswak in his pocket and all of that. and for some strange reason, he doesn't get the job.
It must have been shaitan.
Probably. So then he asks himself, then he's thinking to himself, why didn't I get that job? Okay, why? I seem to have all the credentials, but yet they didn't seem to fancy me. I wonder, it's because these people are probably Islamophobic. Okay, and this is a reality. People do not use. If it is that you go somewhere for something, the first thing that you do if you ever have to do an interview, you find out what is everybody going to be like. What is the wear? For instance, if you're going to an interview in the UK, you know that you must dress in a jacket and tie. You can't wear a blue suit or a white suit for an interview. It must be black and must be the best of black. Can't be a shade of black. And you must have particular types of shoes. They must be shiny. You must have this, you must have that. And these are the things that matter, because these the first things that the interviewers see, first impressions, is so important. So, I mean, we've sidetracked a little bit, but this is an example of something where people, and this guy sincerely believes that, what he's doing is the right thing. He's following the sunnah. And if he wants to dress like that when he goes to the mosque, I have absolutely no problem. I think I would encourage him, if that's what you like, if you feel closer to Allah, then do it. But for heaven's sake, you're going to an interview for a job which has nothing to do with going to the mosque. So you learn what is the expectation in that particular instance. Okay, let's move on to point 8. So point 8 is that of practice makes perfect. And this is a statement of Aristotle. Aristotle says that we are what we do repeatedly. Excellence then is not an act, but it is a habit. And it is the same. You see, what we often look at, okay, we know who is the record holder of 100 meters? Anybody from Jamaica? Is it somebody from Jamaica or Trinidad? Is it Trinidad? No. Okay. Is it Atobolan? Is it Atobolan, isn't it? Okay. I mean, we see the race. We see the race, and we see how well that they do. And then we say, wow, this man must be gifted. He is blessed. You know, I mean, you know, he is just that God-given talent that he has to do anything. I don't know what they do in Jamaica, what type of patties that they eat or whatever, or jerk chicken that they have for dinner, but it's doing something. But what we don't see very often is the amount of hard work that they put in. I mean, I mean, the reason why, I mean, the guys would tell you that sometimes they feel as though that they need to give up because of so much, it's so stressful and so much energy, and the life is turned upside down with the amount. Isn't it true, Tariq? It's very, very difficult. I don't know how you all do it up there in Jamaica. You know, having to climb those blue mountains and whatever it is that you're doing there. But it is difficult. And the same when you approach the Quran. It is not going to be easy. It is going to be difficult. There are going to be moments when you feel as though, you know, I just going to give up. You know, this Arabic business that you've been talking about here, I'm not going to go very far. You know, all of this, all these thousands of pages of tafsir, why do I need to be able to study it? But these are the levels that you go through. These are the levels that you have to go through, because the more that you can put in, the more that you will get out. And this is what Aristotle told us, okay?